Hello, good evening, and thanks for being with us tonight. I'm Blake Burman. So there was a plot twist, a political bear hug, and an admission of change. The spectacle in the Oval. President Trump, Zohran Mamdani.
I think this mayor can do some things that are going to be really great.
The meeting that we had focused not on places of disagreement, which there are many, and also focused on the shared purpose that we have in serving New Yorkers.
And there was a whole lot more of that in moments. Mick Mulvaney, Chris Hahn, and Chris Steyerwalt on what this could mean for America's largest city and the two biggest parties. Also this evening, a new deadline. The commander-in-chief wants a peace deal between Russia and Ukraine by Turkey Day. What Putin and Zelensky are saying tonight. Plus the future of your money. Elon Musk says you may never need to work again. How the IRS, by the way, is also upping the ante with AI agents. And it is the farm fallout. The push from lawmakers both in and out of Washington trying to reverse a ban on certain kinds of hemp. The state tonight that could be making a new move. But first, change, chumminess, and a plot twist. Zohran Mamdani, the self-proclaimed Democratic Socialist, the next mayor of New York City in the Oval Office today with the President of the United States and the leader of the Republican Party. And it sounded like two like-minded friends, not recent political foes.
You know, we had some interesting conversation, and some of his ideas really are the same ideas that I have.
We spoke about rent, we spoke about groceries, we spoke about utilities.
There was no mention of communist, fascist, or despot. Just some of what they have called each other in the recent days and weeks. Our Kelly Meyer watching it all unfold tonight from a White House that was focused today. This was kind of a first, Kelly, because the focus was not on just one star, but really two political stars.
Yeah, two of the biggest names in the Big Apple and in politics, really. President Donald Trump and New York City Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani meeting in the Oval Office today. And I got to tell you, Blake, a lot of people, the reaction we're seeing, were surprised by what they saw in the White House. Even the president himself said he was surprised by the meeting. He said so in the Oval Office. And as you said, it went from him insulting Mamdani just weeks ago, calling him a radical left lunatic, to today saying that he would live in a New York City under the mayor Mamdani. He said that that would be something he would do. He also said when he is going to be happy, the more that Mamdani does for New York City, the happier he says he'll be. Take a listen to this.
We agree on a lot more than I would have thought. I think I want him to do a great job, and we'll help him do a great job. You know, he may have different views. I met with a man who's a very rational person. I met with a man who really wants to see New York be great again.
But not all the reaction, Blake, was positive. During the meeting, one Republican Arizona congressman said Mamdani should have his security clearance denied. And one Democratic senator writing, quote, "It's funny how his tune changed when confronted with Mamdani's actual focus on affordability, something Trump claims to care about." And one GOP operative texting me moments after the meeting rapped, Blake, saying Mamdani recognizes the president's popularity and how important this relationship will be going forward. And even the president saying in the Oval Office today that he would meet with Mamdani again, calling it a great meeting. Blake.
So much going on here. Kelly Meyer live tonight over at the White House. Kelly, thank you. With us now, former chief of staff in President Trump's first term, Mick Mulvaney, and the host of the Aggressive Progressive podcast, Chris Hahn, both NewsNation political contributors. Gentlemen, good evening. Happy Friday. Mulvaney, I don't know how much product you have in your hair right now because you told me you were scratching your head throughout all of this. I want to get to, there you go. I'm going to get to that in a second. But let me break this down two ways. You had Zohran Mamdani and Donald Trump basically saying the same thing about the topic of affordability, and then the president talking about how he changes. Let's start on affordability. Roll it.
And we talked about some things in very strong common, like housing and getting housing built, and food and prices, and the price of oil is coming way down. I think you're going to have, hopefully, a really great mayor. The better he does, the happier I am, I will say. There's no difference in party. There's no difference in anything, and we're going to be helping him.
Mick, it seemed like Trump was leaning into it as much, if not more, to Mamdani than the reversal. What do you make of it?
If that news conference had got another 15 minutes, I would have been as bald as Han is. I have no idea what just happened today. I'm struggling to try. I got so many follow-up questions. When Trump says, you know, we agree on a lot of things, look, we all agree on a lot of things. We all agree that housing should be more affordable. We all agree that food should be more affordable. That's not the hard part. The hard part is, how do you do it? So when Trump says we have a lot of the same ideas, does that mean the end of the process, or is how you get to the end of that process? Look, I am all for civility in politics. It's why I love doing this show. It's why I enjoy working with Chris Hahn all the time, because we have good conversations. But at the end of the day, the policies really matter. And when Donald Trump says, you know, a lot of his ideas are the same as mine, I want to know what those are.
Why did he do that? Why was he saying that, Mick?
I don't know. I don't know if he really thinks that the country is moving left. I mean, keep in mind, a week ago he called the guy a radical communist or something like that. And today he says he's a wonderful guy. Did the guy change? Did the guy walk into the Oval Office and say, look, I know I ran on this, Mr. President, but really a lot closer to you. I don't know what happened. But believe me, I am not the only Republican that is absolutely befuddled tonight.
I mean, Han, Zohran Mamdani had some choice words for Donald Trump, so I could flip it back that way as well on sort of how he handled this. Leaning into the president, was he just simply doing his job there and needed to?
Yeah, look, you got to govern, right? And New York City needs the federal government. Donald Trump is a native of New York City, two guys from the outer boroughs. I mean, of course they were going to get along. They're two charming politicians. I got along with Donald Trump when I met him. It is the way it is, right? They're good at their job. It's why they got elected. And as for my hair, Mr. Mulvaney, you are as bald as me. I just embrace it. So let's just be very clear. Look, I think this was Donald Trump's best day in about 3 weeks.
Why?
Okay? He actually looked human, because he looked human. He looked like he wasn't crazy. There's a good part of the country that has been reading his tweets, and he's looked kind of crazy. And again, he reads a poll. He sees that the American people are holding him accountable for the economy. Mamdani won on the economy. He wants to embrace some of that winning. Trump likes a winner, and Mamdani is clearly a winner and very good at his job.
Here's what I thought there was so much going on here that was fascinating, guys. Here, to me, was maybe perhaps at the very top of the list, what the president said about change. Here it was.
He's got views that are a little out there, but who knows? I mean, we're going to see what works, or he's going to change also. We all change. I changed a lot from when I first came to office. I feel very confident that he can do a very good job. I think he's going to be. I think he is going to surprise some conservative people, actually.
We all change. I've changed. Some of his positions are just like my policies. Why do you think the president went there, Mick?
Going to surprise me with what? Going to surprise me that government ownership of grocery stores works? That's going to surprise me if that happens. Look, if you're a Republican tonight, I'll go back to what Han just said. It was a good day for Donald Trump. Listen, it was a huge success. Everybody tuned in to watch it. Right. I don't know what the ratings are, but this was a big deal, okay? A good day for Donald Trump. Yes, I get that. Okay. A horrible day for Elise Stefanik. I mean, she must be going absolutely. She's running for governor of New York. She just recently announced.
Yeah, so Stefanik is running for governor, and Trump was Mamdani. Trump was asked about comments that Stefanik has called Mamdani a jihadist, and Trump basically didn't. He basically sort of brushed it off, and this is the response from Elise Stefanik tonight, Han, which is basically saying, you know what, we agree to disagree on this one.
Yeah. Look, Trump is a smart politician who knows how to read a poll. Elise Stefanik is not going to be governor of New York. Not at all. She's got no chance. Mamdani is going to be mayor of New York. Trump's got a lot of interest in New York, both politically and personally. And I think he wants to get along with Mamdani. And I think that Elise Stefanik, she's probably going to be looking for a way out of this gubernatorial race very soon, and she's going to want Donald Trump to do it. So, yes, it was a bad day for her gubernatorial aspirations. It might be a good day for the deal she gets when she leaves.
All right, guys, I got to leave it there. Chris Hahn, Mick Mulvaney, appreciate you both. Have a great rest of your Friday.
Thank you.
Thanks, of course. Here now, host of The Hill Sunday, senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute, Chris Stirewalt. Hello, sir.
What up?
A lot. I'll take that open-ended question. So one of the things that Zohran Mamdani kept saying today was like, there's some Trump in my base, essentially, right? Here's what he said, and then let's take it from there.
When I spoke to New Yorkers who had voted for the president last November on Hillside Avenue and Fordham Road, I asked them why. I heard again and again two major reasons. One was that they wanted an end to forever wars. They wanted an end to the taxpayer dollars we had funding violations of human rights, and they wanted to address the cost of living crisis. And I appreciated the chance to discuss both of those things.
He said a lot of my voters actually voted for him, and I'm okay with that.
I think there's some folks out there who are wondering, who are these 10%? Does it exist, and what brings them together?
I don't think it's 10%. It's a non-zero number.
Okay.
And New York is weird, right? I love you, New York. I'm not mad at you, New York, but New York is not like the rest of America. Right. And there are a lot of people in New York who voted for Donald Trump and voted for Zohran Mamdani. How many tens of thousands of people maybe in New York? But that's not like an actual national constituency. Right. There isn't an actual national constituency, but there is a national constituency for the ideas of socialism and the ideas of nationalism. So Donald Trump is the apex nationalist in American politics, in which we're not conservative anymore. We're nationalistic. We can take ownership shares in companies. We can slap tariffs on. We can do anything. We can blow up drug boats. We can do anything that we want as long as we adjudge it to be in the interest of the people of the nation of the United States. Socialism doesn't disagree with all of that stuff. So the horseshoe does bend and get some of the Trump supporters in the same neighborhood as some of the Mamdani supporters. But I think Mick and Chris pointed to the ultimate problem.
Which is?
Everybody would like unicorns and rainbows.
Yep.
Everybody would like whatever. How you do that is where things fall apart.
Yeah, Mamdani's talked about like raising the corporate tax rate in New York and all that. From Trump's perspective, why do you think that happened today?
Well, Donald Trump, I think of Donald Trump first and foremost as a brilliant media mind. And he was the executive producer of a very successful game show for a long time. And he's the guy. He knows how to do it. So this is a moment where you build up the tension, and the tension is built up. And finally, you know, when Omarosa has the and it's like, and here's the moment, and he choreographed it, and it was great. And it is to Mamdani's credit that he knew how to play that situation. And the last thing I'll say about that is Donald Trump has been dealing with Democratic politicians in New York City for a lot longer than he's been dealing with Republican politicians in Washington, D.C. Ed Koch, David Dinkins, you can take it back into the way before times. So this is definitely a space he's familiar with.
To your point, I got a text, this is why I was digging into my phone, from someone who used to work for Trump at a very high level, and this is what they said to me. They said, all about ratings, you guys will be covering nonstop plot twist.
Yeah, it's a plot twist, it's a reveal, it's that thing, and he's very good at that.
Yep. Speaking of very good, you have the best Sunday show in the biz, and you got a big guest coming up Sunday, 10 a.m. here on News Nation, with the backdrop, of course, with healthcare and the conversation around that.
Yeah, Bill Cassidy has a big idea about what to do about healthcare. Can he find enough Republicans willing to embrace? Remember when Republicans did the repeal and replace but forgot to replace? Bill Cassidy is telling Republicans, we got to come up with another solution. And it speaks to everything that's going on here, which is, can the Republicans be conservative and react to the pressures from the electorate? Or do they just break and run and say, actually, we're all socialists now?
I think people forget that was the very first thing that Trump promised to do in 2017. Right?
You got it. Thumbs down, said John McCain.
Exactly. Chris Stirewalt, catch you Sunday morning. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Still to come. Other side of the break, a horrific attack captured on camera. A woman set on fire on a Chicago train by a suspect with a lengthy rap sheet. Why was this man on the street? One of the very many questions tonight. Plus, the clock running out for Ukraine, as President Trump issues an ultimatum to Zelensky and Putin as well. What could come in the next few days? And could it actually happen? Elon Musk says robots will one day make work for you optional. How might that work? I'm Blake Burman. I still have work here for another, what is it, 45 minutes or so. See you in 4. 6:20 here on the East Coast tonight, 5:20 in Chicago, where the man accused of setting a woman on fire aboard a subway train will stay behind bars pending trial. Prosecutors say 50-year-old Lawrence Reed poured gasoline on the 26-year-old while her back was turned and then ignited it. That woman attempted to fight off Reed and extinguish the flames by rolling on the ground. She remains in the hospital tonight with life-threatening burns. The suspect has a lengthy rap sheet that includes more than 70 arrests, leaving many to wonder, why was he out on the streets in the first place? Our Natasha Zuvis joins us live now from the federal courthouse in Chicago following this one. Natasha?
Yeah, hi there, Blake. It's a really tough story. The man accused of setting that woman on fire appeared in the courtroom today, and he was brought in, rather flanked by 4 U.S. Marshals wearing a yellow jumpsuit, shackled at the wrists. Now, prosecutors say that he was out on pretrial release when this happened, and I do want to bring up his mugshot here so you can take a look at this. A 50-year-old Lawrence Reed, he is now charged with a terrorist attack or other violence against a mass transportation system, a federal crime that could carry up to life in prison. And let's talk about his history. He's been arrested 71 times and convicted 13 times in Cook County, including an aggravated arson case in April of 2020. Now, at the time of this attack, he was out on pretrial release for an aggravated battery charge from August, where he's accused of knocking a hospital social worker unconscious. Prosecutors had asked him to be kept in custody awaiting that trial, but a judge decided to release him on electronic home monitoring. Well, Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson calling the attack, quote, an absolute failure of both the criminal justice system and mental health institutions.
The system that we had failed to intervene, and now we have a woman who is fighting for her life, and I am praying for her and her full recovery.
We have new details today. Prosecutors talking about just how horrific this attack was. Prosecutors say that Reed bought gasoline just about 20 minutes before the attack, filling a small container at a nearby gas station. Now, once on the train, the prosecution saying that Reed looked over at the woman, I'm sorry, it is loud here, Blake, at least 5 or 6 times as she was engulfed in flames, watching as if nothing happened, they say, and that he could be heard mumbling an expletive, "Burn B, burn alive B." That was the quote. Their witnesses simply horrified at what they saw.
Just seen her lying on the ground, and she was kind of hyperventilating, in a lot of pain. She was really, you could tell she was really in bad shape.
The woman's family asking for prayers and privacy at this time as their daughter is continuing to fight for her life tonight. She is in critical condition, Blake.
And convicted 13 times, as you report tonight. Natasha Zuvis, live in Chicago. Natasha, thank you. Still much more ahead here on the Hill, including President Trump now pressuring Ukraine, Russia as well, to sign a peace deal by Thanksgiving. That means in the upcoming days, or potentially lose his support. Plus this.
Humanoid robots will be the biggest industry, or the biggest product ever. Bigger than cell phones or anything else.
Elon Musk says robots will make it so that you might not ever have to work again. What is that all about? Would you doubt Elon when it comes to tech? When we return. President Trump tonight issuing an ultimatum to the Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky as the Trump administration pushes a Thanksgiving deadline for accepting a 28-point plan to end the war in Ukraine.
He'll have to like it, and if he doesn't like it, then, you know, they should just keep fighting, I guess. Well, at some point, he's going to have to accept something, you know.
Earlier, Zelensky articulated just how tough a position he believes this has put him and his country in.
Now Ukraine may find itself facing a very difficult choice. Either the loss of dignity or the risk of losing a key partner. Either the difficult 28 points or an extremely difficult winter, the most difficult and further risks.
While President Trump attempts to build bridges between Russia and Ukraine, some argue that he may be burning bridges with European allies, or at least that's how they see it over in Europe tonight. In the plan, Ukraine would have to give up more territory than Russia currently controls, accept military limits, and allow Russia back into the international community. Putin seems to have responded favorably, saying of the 28-point plan, quote, "I believe that it can be used as the basis for a final peaceful settlement," but also adding that if the deal is rejected, Russian forces would advance even further. Joining us now, the retired four-star general, former NATO Supreme Allied Commander, General Wesley Clark. General, always nice to see you, sir. Thanks for being with us. This deadline, Thanksgiving, get a deal. It's around the corner. Do you think it happens?
You know, can I put it in historical perspective first?
Of course.
So in 1973, President Nixon demanded that South Vietnamese President Thieu accept the peace agreement. He demanded it. Otherwise, you get nothing. Thieu said, "You're going to destroy my country if I accept this because there's a North Vietnamese army left inside my country." Nixon said, "Don't worry, we'll protect you." He forced President Thieu to sign the agreement. Then there was no protection. South Vietnamese collapsed. South Vietnam collapsed. There was warfare throughout Southeast Asia for 5 years afterwards. It was a mess. But Nixon was out of office. Then in 2020, President Trump negotiated a plan without the participation of the Afghan government with the Taliban. He told the Afghan, "You accept it." Okay, that's the plan that collapsed in the first few months of President Biden's government. This looks like the same process. When the United States decides it wants a peace agreement, it leans on the party that's most dependent on it and forces it to comply, often with disastrous results. Now, Blake,
could I push back? Could I push back respectfully, General, and bring up, well, there was just this 20-point peace plan between Israel and Hamas, and in 10 days, all of a sudden that went from sort of public knowledge to the president standing in the Israeli Knesset. Could we possibly be on that timeline?
Well, there's a big difference because Hamas was defeated. It wasn't the U.S. ally. Israel was told to accept the plan, and they're still bombing in Lebanon and Gaza. Now, here's what this plan is really. This plan says to Ukraine, you'll make irreversible sacrifices. You'll give up land, cut your armed forces, put in your constitution you'll never be a member of NATO. And to Russia, you'll make promises that are essentially unenforceable. The United States will say it's going to give a security commitment, but what is that security commitment? There'll be no NATO forces in Ukraine, nothing there. Zelensky's in a really tough position, and the Europeans are in a tough position. And I fully sympathize with President Trump, who wants this war over. But I respectfully look at history and what happens when these kinds of agreements are pushed too rapidly. They may win consensus. They may even get him a Nobel Peace Prize. But it's unlikely that this agreement in its present form would bring a lasting, durable peace to the region. Look, Blake, I know we got different opinions on this, okay? You like it?
I'm just, it's not my,
I've been in this business. I'm 80 years old. I've been in this business since I fought in Vietnam. I've seen it from one perspective and another all this time. If I had a chance to say to President Trump, I'd say, "Sir, please, let's make this more balanced. What is it that Russia is conceding? Let them give up the territory in Zaporizhia, the territory in Kherson, and then maybe it's a fair trade for what's in Donbass. And what are the restrictions on the Russian forces? Are they going to have any restrictions? Why is it only on Ukraine? Ukraine didn't start the war." So I think when you look at this, you've got to put it in perspective. I'm very concerned that the United States is going to be left holding the bag on this, forcing a peace agreement that doesn't work.
Let me leave you with this, General, because the president said today, and by the way, you know, we have you on the show all the time because obviously I respect you immensely. The president said today, Well, at some point, he, speaking of Zelensky, is going to have to accept something. Is that the reality? And I guess if so, then when?
Well, it all depends on the level of support that's given to Zelensky. Russia's not in any great shape right now. They're hurting too. They're losing tremendous number of forces. Their economy's in shambles. They've got limited support coming from China, despite the sort of unlimited partnership. So Russia is not able to sort of steamroller over Ukraine. They've been trying for 3 years to take this area in Donbass that they still haven't taken. So Russia is going to come forward at some point too. I think the United States is in a stronger position than maybe the 28-point proposal suggests. And I think you could get a more balanced agreement if you leaned on Mr. Putin a little bit more.
Retired 4-star General Wesley Clark, always appreciate the perspective, sir. Thank you for being with us tonight here on the Hill. See you again soon. Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you. You too.
By the way, thank you. Imagine, speaking of Thanksgiving and the holidays coming up, never having to work again. And you don't even need to win the lottery. Well, the world's richest man says that it is all possible for all one day, thanks to AI.
You can go to the store and just buy some vegetables, or you could grow vegetables in your backyard. It's much harder to grow vegetables in your backyard, but some people still do it because they like growing vegetables. That will be what work is like, optional.
The government already experimenting, by the way, with an AI workforce. Axios reporting tonight that the IRS is rolling out Salesforce artificial intelligence agents, a program that is called Agent Force, the IRS AI agents. Nancy Liu joins us live from Los Angeles, where the robots are not yet invading, but they got a whole lot of cool things going on there in your backyard, Nancy.
Yeah, not quite yet, Blake, but a definite invasion is underway. The jobs, they are going away pretty quickly, especially in manufacturing. According to Elon Musk, humanoid robots, they're going to play a pivotal role in the labor shift, and coincidentally, Tesla is at the forefront of this sector, producing armies of Optimus robots to take over all kinds of jobs. Humanoids are set to join the assembly line in producing Tesla vehicles, and Musk acknowledges a lot of work ahead in building and scaling technology while also reshaping established institutions.
Humanoid robots will be the biggest industry, or the biggest product ever. Bigger than cell phones or anything else, because everyone's going to want one, and or maybe more than one, and there'll be many in industry.
Now, there are about 24 companies developing humanoids, and in the workforce, businesses which invest will eventually lower labor costs with machines that can work 24/7, increasing productivity and profitability. For actual humans, this means a monumental shift as many physical jobs become obsolete and many more tech jobs open up because of AI. Now, a new study out of Stanford has revealed a 13% drop in entry-level jobs, indicating the labor shift that Musk envisions. It's already underway. Now, without elaborating, Musk, he also made a bold prediction that money, currency, it's going to become irrelevant in the future because of AI and robotics. But Blake, it sounds like the very distant future, so we got to keep working.
The distant future, and the future is also kind of here all at once. It's a crazy, wild time out there with all this stuff. Nancy Liu, live tonight in LA. Nancy, thank you. Still to come here on the Hill. What on earth, speaking of whatever comes next, what did we witness inside the Oval today?
We're going to be helping him to make everybody's dream come true, having a strong and very safe New York.
From foes to friends, is that where they are now? Look at the handshake even. Full panel, other side.
The meeting that we had focused not on places of disagreement, which there are many, and also focused on the shared purpose that we have in serving New Yorkers.
You know, we had some interesting conversation, and some of his ideas really are the same ideas that I have.
They were calling each other fascists and communists just like the other day. And then that inside the Oval Office today. Full panel here with me now. Julia Manchester, White House reporter for The Hill. Yemisi Egbawali, former chief of staff for the Biden White House press shop. And Erin McGuire is a Republican strategist. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
Hello to you all. Thanks for being here. You said to me, Donald Trump endorsed Zohran Mamdani before Chuck Schumer did.
It basically seems that way, essentially. And he's also letting Zohran Mamdani, hey, go ahead, call me a fascist, and not even egging him on. Just like, go for it. You know, I was so surprised at how chummy and warm and friendly this meeting was. I mean, I kind of had a feeling it could have been cordial, but I don't think any of us were necessarily expecting this. So I guess when I was texting my sources, the big question I was asking, who does this benefit more, Mamdani or Trump? Or who does this benefit more, Republicans or Democrats? And Republicans I was chatting with seemed pretty split. Some said this benefits them because it further divides Democrats if they're upset with Mamdani sort of currying favor with Trump. But also on the flip side of that, Mamdani is really, I think, in this meeting showing himself to be a pragmatist, walking into the lion's den in many ways, in charming the president of the United States.
Speaking of charming, Erin and Yemisi, here was the president when he was asked, because keep in mind, he's called Zohran Mamdani a communist, right? And Zohran Mamdani has thrown all sorts of words back at him. Would you be comfortable living in New York City with Mayor Mamdani? And here's what he said.
Would you feel comfortable living in New York City under a Mamdani administration?
Yeah, I would. I really would, especially after the meeting.
Is that the Donald Trump that you used to speak for in a former life, in a past campaign? Like, do you recognize that? Why was he doing that?
I do recognize that because if you've spent any time with Donald Trump, and I know pretty much everybody here has, he's very gregarious, very outgoing. But you get him in a room in a one-on-one conversation, he really is a charming man. So him and Mandani somehow having that weird, almost bromance between the two of them in that moment doesn't surprise me. Trump is very good at that, and so is Mandani. I actually think to the question of who's the bigger winner or loser here, Republicans or Democrats, Trump or Mandani, I actually think the biggest winner out of this is Elise Stefanik. I think
winner?
I do.
Oh,
and
no,
listen to my case here.
I
think listen to my case here. This is an opportunity. And it may be a slim, just one wedge issue, but it gives her an opportunity to distance herself from the president. And it let her go after Hochul again. She got another headline today of being able to take the case to Hochul because her tweet went after Hochul and not Mandani. And this great Democrat fantasy they had that somehow Elise was only going to run against Mandani and this got taken away from her, not true at all.
Just for some context here, the president was asked, Elise Stefanik has called Zohran Mamdani a jihadist. Do you agree with that? And he didn't take the bait.
He didn't take the bait.
He sort of took the bait, or sort of stood behind Mamdani.
I know it was a hot take on my part, but I think.
What'd you make of it?
Oh, I mean, I think it just proves the point that Trump prefers people from New York, and he doesn't really like
nothing wrong with a good New Yorker.
I mean, just a couple weeks ago, he was incredibly critical of Senate Republicans. He blamed them for the loss that happened at the top of November, and now he's chummy with Mamdani. I mean, I really feel for the GOP operatives that now have to scramble and figure out how we make midterms about something other than Mamdani. This was the one horse that they bet on, and I don't think it really works when the president has said, I would live in a Mamdani
So I think,
New York.
But I think for Trump, though, we both know that this sweet little honeymoon we're seeing today is unlikely to be the long-term strategy here.
You just moved me to where I was going next. Yes or no? Like, this doesn't last, right?
It does not last, no.
Doesn't last.
So if it doesn't last, it's probably going to be over something like ICE or policing, which was something that they talked about. The president has also threatened to cut off federal funding. Here's what he said today when asked about that question.
President Trump, you've threatened to cut off federal funding to New York City. What policies would prompt you to do that?
Well, I think if we didn't get along, whether it's cut off or just make it a little bit difficult or not give as much, we want to see, I use the term, we don't want good money going after bad. And we don't want that to happen. I don't think that's going to happen.
So the threat's kind of, sort of still there?
It kind of sort of still there. I think it depends really what happens. And after, the two of them left that meeting, I think that's when we see Mamdani go into the mayor's office. I mean, that's when the real test begins. But I think Republicans and Democrats both have to be very careful, speaking of the midterms, about how they play this, because both of these men, Mamdani and Trump, mentioned this today. They do share a base in many ways. These are economic populists. There were AOC Trump voters in 2024, and there are Trump Mamdani voters in 2025. There is an overlap there, and I think, in particularly in some of these swing races, if there are economic populist voters, it'll be interesting to see how both parties really message to that.
So I will say, I think as a centrist, for the centrists in the Democratic Party, this is a relief. There was a lot of worry about how Mamdani was going to play in a lot of other areas that are swing states. I think the progressive base that really helped carry him might feel a little uncomfortable with how chummy and how smiling.
Right, like,
I mean, you call someone a fascist and then you stand next to them smiling. Like the shoe has to drop at some point. But for those in the moderate base, there is a little bit of a relief here.
And I think for Republicans right now, what they're looking at is they liked the idea to have a socialist to run against going in the midterms, but it's very clear that Trump and Republicans are focused on the affordability message. The president is hammering that right now. It's about costs. It's about cutting tariffs. It's about cutting red tape and bringing down the cost for the American people. So while Mandani is a fun foil for TV ads, I said this before, there wasn't going to be like a Fire Mandani tour, the way there's a Fire Pelosi tour or things like that. He will be a point in the campaigns, I'm sure, for many, especially if he does take a more extreme route that he indicated he would. But to think that he was going to be the ultimate foil for Republicans in the midterms was just a fallacy of talking heads.
You know, it also occurred to me as I was watching this yesterday, one of the big stories was who would go to prison or be executed, and Democrats saying defy orders in the White House, blah, blah, blah. And we all know, political rhetoric and how it's escalated, and we've all seen just awful incidents. Can you watch what we saw in the Oval today and say, good on both of them? Like, that's the way it's supposed to go?
I think you can, but at the same time, this is politics at play.
Which is why it's like, it's such a reasonable and crazy thing to say all at once.
Right? Absolutely. This is the wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Right. Yeah. A reasonable and crazy thing to say?
I mean, we live in the land of opposite day all the time. It's always conflicting. We just saw Zohran Mandani, an avowed socialist, standing next to Donald Trump behind the Resolute desk, and the two of them going, hey, buddy. I mean, we live in the land of comparative differences, but ultimately, this is what so many people have been screaming about at Donald Trump for years, for over a decade now, that he can't go across the aisle, that he can't bring people in, that he's such a polarizing figure. He brought the person who, while they do share some similarities in the economic populist stance, is his polar opposite in many, many ways. And he was able to do the statesman thing that everybody thinks or talks about that he can't do, and he did it extremely well today.
Give you last word here, Yemisi.
I mean, this is really going to be interesting to see how Congress reacts to it. I know we made the joke about Chuck Schumer, but there really is a question here about Democratic leadership and the way that they avoided owning someone that Trump immediately clung to. And I think that's an indictment on them.
Yemisi, Aaron, Julia, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Still to come here on the Hill, the race to save hemp farmers. We were the first ones on this story, the update, and what's happening in one state on the other side.
8217.
All right, so if you're just getting home on this Friday evening, trying to catch up on today's top stories, here's some of what's trending on thehill.com. Swalwell on green. I can put the crazy aside and bring her under the tent. The Democratic Congressman Eric Swalwell saying that his party needs to be more open to the Republican Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene after her clashes with President Trump. All of this as Swalwell announced that he will be running to become the next governor of California. And of course, Republicans might have some choice words for him. Also trending, New Orleans braces for arrival of federal troops in immigration crackdown. DHS sending as many as 250 federal immigration officers to the Big Easy as part of Operation Swamp Sweep. Border Patrol Commander-at-Large Gregory Bovino is expected to lead that operation when it begins on December 1st. The goal? For officers to arrest some 5,000 people across both Louisiana and Mississippi. And finally, you knew this was coming. Had to know this was coming. GOP rep does 6-7 gesture while presiding over the House. We've seen kids all across the country doing it, so why not a congressman?
To the joint resolution. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. It's about 6-7.
Congressman Blake Moore of Utah doing the gesture, but it's safe to say some were not amused. The congressman posting on X, my kids tell me I'm ruining it. That's what a lot of us parents have gotten. As I told my kids, you know what time Daddy's show is on TV? Between 6, 7. I got the same look. check out those stories and more. All you have to do, head on over to thehill.com. All right, time for my take before we head out tonight. One of the many consequences for the longest government shutdown in our nation's history. One that may go overlooked, the toll on hemp farmers. Suddenly snuck into the law language that outlaws certain levels of THC in hemp. Now, not to get too into the weeds here, but as hemp farmer Stacey McCaskill told us recently, hemp farmers all over the country say it means their farms will go out of business, and it would make those THC-based drinks, creams, gummies that millions use illegal. Congresswoman Nancy Mace now spearheading a bipartisan bill to try to overturn all that, but it turns out this is now an issue that is lighting up at least one state capital. In Ohio this week, legislators there potentially reached a compromise on intoxicating hemp. Now, while leaving out the THC-infused drinks, maybe they'll sip on that one another day. Here's the point with this. This is one issue you are going to see going forward, whether it's in this capital or capitals across the country. Politicians now jumping in. Hope you have a great weekend. Elizabeth starts now.